Right now we're going to discuss the Canon proportions for the human face. Here we have a human face. To start, some of you are working on paper that's about this size. If you're not, you can kind of drop one in the middle of it, your large drawing pad, and draw around it to create this format. But this is about the size. I'm working here, and can see the ultimate image I'm going to work with. That's just going to help me kind of establish the size of things that I draw in here. The Canon proportions is very useful for getting the face right. Particularly this particular kind of mugshot pose has a pretty well-defined set of proportions that the facial features adhere to. So we can start when we're drawing ahead. We can start, and I was kind of using the image there as a gauge, and I'm just going to start with a circle here. Just drawing this circle. We're drawing a circle. Simple way to get that done is just kind of put your pencil down and don't follow it with your eyes, but just kind of let it run around and get that circular shape. Sometimes I'm going to back up and see if your circle is actually a circle, but the idea is that you can kind of sneak up on one. I will then take this circle. I'm going to divide it into divide it in half, and then divide it into half from there. And we can take relative measurements. We're going to use the tip of the pencil and our finger quite a bit to check these measurements. But that measurement's pretty well on. The more you draw, the more you kind of get a kind of interior awareness of proportions and things. We'll divide these in half. Two halves in half. And then I can check again and make sure my units here are remaining consistent, and they do appear to be. I'm also going to divide this thing in half the other way and set up a vertical axis here that we're going to use for a couple of different purposes. Check that measurement. Appears to line up pretty well. So we got this circle here divided into fourths at this point. So we got 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. We're going to take these fourths and we're going to actually hold that measurement there. So we're holding this measurement and we're going to move it down. We're actually going to start it at that particular line. We can draw the bottom of our format here where it needs to be, and we can also maybe draw the right and left side of that format pretty, or that new circle pretty accurately. So we're drawing a second circle, a smaller circle here, and again we kind of want to let the pencil run around to do its thing and make that circle come into being. So there we go, a couple circles there. We'll divide this one again into its proper measurements here. 1, 2, 3. This one could potentially wind up a little lower. Do a little bit of an eraser there just to. So we're drawing a couple circles here, and we're dividing these circles up into these kind of equal measurements at this point. We can also go ahead and finish out this grid. And we're going to kind of draw, just keeping this line, edge of the circle, and parallel with the edge of the paper, edge of the circle, trying to keep it parallel with the edge of the paper, or edge of the format here. So we want it to kind of remain equidistant from the edge there. So we got these equal measurements here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 units up there, and then let's divide these in half also. So we got these equal 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this side. So we got a grid that's 4 by 6 units, whatever these are, and they're equal all the way around. And so we start to get some suggestion here that the head is roughly 4 by 6 in terms of the ratio of height to width. Kind of an ovular shape. The overall shape of the head, which is built out of these two circles, it's kind of an ovular shape, and we'll be building the features of the face inside of that oval. The features land in very particular places. As a matter of fact, the halfway line here is right here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 on either side of it. We have 3 units. This is the midpoint of the head, and that's where the eyes land. And the center of the eyes can be located. So this is halfway, and that's where the eyes go on that line. So this line right here, 1 unit in from the left and 1 unit in from the right, that's where the center of our eyes should land. Now, obviously this is sketchy, right? I mean, I'm kind of just approximating it to a degree. It's not scientifically accurate or anything. So, the potential that as we persist with our drawing, we have to make some changes certainly exists. But this will help us have everything in essentially the right spot. The center of the eyes will exist about right here, and so we'll have the rest of the eye that surrounds it. And if we kind of rough that in, what we want our head to be roughly, we want the head to be roughly 5 eyes wide. So as we try to get these things in, like I will say over and over again, stay light, stay light, stay light. This is a structural drawing. It is part of how you get the measurements down. None of this is intended to remain at the end of the drawing. So hopefully we got roughly enough for 5 eye widths here. Oftentimes the sides might be slightly smaller, but that's a rough approximation of 5 eyes wide. Other lines that we have already established. One here is this particular line here where the bottom of that circle hits, and where the eye width we've established here. This gives us roughly the placement and the width of where the bottom of the nose will be. So this line that is 1, 2, 3, 4 down from the bottom, it's actually the bottom of that larger circle. This is the placement of the nose, the bottom of the nose. Again, that nose and the measurements you've already made, the nose is typically an eye width or lines up with the 2 insides of the eye. We need to take this circle, the smaller circle, and we need to divide it in half. This line that divides that circle in half gives us, and we can check it, 1, 2, pretty close. This is where the crease or the lips crease of the mouth lands. And the mouth lines up so that the corners of the mouth happen right the same place that the center of the eye occurs. Now, oftentimes lips don't appear as wide as the corner of the mouth, but we certainly can get our placement of our mouth here. And so again, this line forms the center of the eye, corner of the mouth, center of the eye, corner of the mouth. So these grid lines become very, very useful for us. This line right here oftentimes forms the top of the chin as well. Placement of the eyebrows oftentimes is roughly halfway up between these two lines, maybe a little higher. I'll just rough them in. Eyebrows pretty variable for things. This again, this drawing should be very light, and it looks not realistic at all. It shouldn't look very realistic. It's just about getting the placement of things. We will go back once we've got things placed. We can go back and get into more of the specifics. The ears typically share the eye and nose line here on the side of the head, depending how large your ears are. Actually, in my photograph, I don't see a lot of my ears, and so even though I'm kind of placing that in, so you understand that the ear here is going to share the line of the kind of the bottom of the nose and the center of the eyes. That's roughly the size of the ears. It's important placement. So we got eyebrows here, we got eyes, roughly 5 eyes wide, nose width the same as the eye width in the middle there. The mouth here is placed in the halfway point of this circle. So we have essentially of that small circle there, we got 1/2 and 1/2. So that's where the mouth is placed, on that halfway line. And then there's another aspect that typically follows one of these lines. And this line right here, the first line down from top, is typically where the placement of the hairline would occur. I don't suffer that problem of having a hairline myself, but for many of you, and hairlines are very, very highly variable. They're different shapes and so forth. But this is typically the placement of the hairline. And what other features? We're going to have a neck, and the one way I like to think about it is that the neck is actually, a continuation of the head. For my particular photo, we don't see a great deal of the neck. It's kind of cropped out by the beard, but the neck is, your head does not sit on a post. There's actually kind of just a continuation of the shape of the head and the neck. So it's kind of important just to take a line that's already there. For me, things are going to kind of turn outward pretty quickly because of the shoulder line kind of takes over later in my drawing. But it's significant to note the shoulders are connected, but the placement of the neck and drawing a neck, be aware your head and neck are connected pretty directly. Your head does not sit on a post. The bottom of your head and neck transition slowly into each other. So the placement of that. At this point, we've got things essentially where they need to be in terms of the canon of proportions. I could try to draw things in a little bit more dramatically so that this drawing of example has a little more definition as you try to complete your particular canon of proportion drawing, but at this point, this is really about what we use this for, to get things placed and understand exactly what this notion of the canon of proportions is good for. This is a very generic version of a person, and we got the top of the head here, bottom of the head here, bottom of the chin. The overall proportions here, we wound up having it was 4 wide in terms of these little units that became the measurement, and 6 tall. So that was an interesting proportion that emerged here. And so I think this gets us set in terms of pretty much what we need to do in terms of sketching in the canon of proportions on this particular format. And then we can move forward from here by starting to get more specific about the shapes of some of these features and the relationships. I did actually take the liberty of kind of overlaying the proportions over top of the face there, just to finish the argument that these proportions are in fact useful and accurate as a way of establishing the facial proportions, although you're only part of the way there.